Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to Week 3 opponent preview of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Iowa Joe and we're going to go over the 2025 Week 3 opponent. That would be the Cleveland Browns, who will be wearing their Alpha Dog all-brown helmets, sponsored by Dude Wipes. That's
Dude
right.
Wipes.
That one put a smile on my face today.
Now, I have a serious question about the Dude Wipes. Are they, because I don't know, I know what they are, but I don't know anything about them. Is that sponsored by Dude Perfect?
I think it is. I think it's an offshoot. I'm not sure.
Or not sponsored, but is that one of their many products that they put out there? I know they're taking a lot of flack a lot lately because they've started to turn more corporate.
No,
they're
separate,
not? Okay.
Separate, yeah.
Okay. No, I was just curious because I keep
They're
seeing those everywhere. It's like, yeah.
All right. Before we get totally off the rails, back to the Packers.
It's too late.
So the Packers are heading into this Week 3 game. They're coming off the mini bye, looking to get back on a more regular schedule. And not that this is a grueling part of the Packers schedule, but said it ad nauseum the past few episodes, but 2 games in 5 days, it was grueling. So the team's looking to get back into a more regular routine, and we're reaping some of the benefits of that already with today's injury report. The team only had one did not participate, and it was Jaden Reed, who honestly will be going on IR anywhere from today to Saturday, basically, just so that Sunday's game counts towards his 4 games, the mandatory 4 games missed on IR. I do get the feeling that the front office is basically just slow playing it until they hit the 4-week mark for like Marshawn Lloyd and Christian Watson. I had kind of floated the idea that if there had been a player they were interested going after to have on the roster, like from outside of the organization, you'd figure that they would have signed that player last week after the game so that you have the full weekend, extra days to practice kind of thing. This is more like a outside the 90-man roster kind of thing. So, if there's someone on another practice squad, a street free agent kind of thing or something, don't really need to sign someone off. Like they could slow play bringing someone off the Packers practice squad itself, because that guy's already in the building, already like is kind of immersed in the playbook and stuff. But as it stands right now, the Packers are sitting at 52 players on the 53-man roster because they never filled Brenton Cox's spot when they put him on IR. And then
I'm wondering if it's Micah Robinson, because he'll be out of call-ups here pretty quick because they've already used 2 of them.
And on that front, Bo Melton and Nate Hobbs were both limited participants today. So both guys seem to be trending in the right direction there. We'll see if they could slow play it, because they can definitely exhaust Robinson's final call-up and then make a decision after that. But my theory is that since they haven't filled either of those roster spots at this point, they're just at this point looking towards Watson and Lloyd being ready to come back sooner than later. But also at the same time, they can utilize the 21-day practice window. So, they're in a state of limbo. They're not on the active roster, so they can't be activated, but they can practice in that time. So, we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. But that was just something that I figured that really did pique my interest in terms of, what they're doing from a roster construction standpoint. But the big news is that both Aaron Banks and Zach Tom returned to practice today. Very different outlooks from each player with regards to that. Aaron Banks basically said, yeah, I'm playing on Sunday, like no ifs, ands, or buts. And Zach, on the other hand, was much more apprehensive, stating that he feels good going laterally, but doesn't feel good trying to run in a straight line and stuff. And in all honesty, unless something magical changes within the next, what is that, 72 hours, but, Thursday, you're going to hear this on Thursday. Unless anything changes in the next 72 hours, I just don't see a reason to start Zach Tom if he's less than 100%. Because, one, this is one of those games where I do think having a fully healthy, whether it's Belton, Kennard, or even if they bump Morgan over to right tackle, it's more useful to have a fully healthy guy than to have Tom trying to not just battle Garrett, but battle Garrett, bringing a knife to a gunfight kind of thing. So I just think it's good that he's out there practicing, but at the same time, it's one of those, why risk it? We talk about it all the time. You've got to go and you've got to approach it from a 10,000 foot view, see the big picture. Don't strain so hard trying to win a single game when you could lose more if you get a key player injured for the long haul. So other than that, Zane Anderson and Jordan Love were full participants. Love didn't have the protective wrap, or the protective. He wasn't wearing any sort of guide on the thumb, but he did have some tape on it, according to the reporters. And then, in addition to Banks and Tom, as noted, Hobbs and Melton were limited. The one that's a little concerning is Jacobs was listed as he's a limited to participant, and you did see him get dinged up. I forget which play it was. I'd have to go back and look, but there was a play where you saw him get up slowly after run, and I think the stat is that Savion and Golden have more carries between the two of them than Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson do at this point in the season. And it is one of those where I get it, you got to get Jacobs going, but at the same time, you need him going in December, January, February. Yes, obviously you want him to, get rolling as soon as he can, but you also don't want him to peter out in September kind of thing. And especially if you get, like I said, same thing, have the big picture. You don't want to get him dinged up early and have him dealing with an ankle or something all season that's just dogging him, where he might be 4-yard carry instead of 4.4 yards a carry kind of guy. So something to keep an eye on, and we'll see if they, try to lighten his load a little bit. But that's where the injuries stand. We always say we're going off of one day of practice when we roll into these episodes. So we'll see where it goes. But Joe, you can't be much happier with where the Packers are at this point, sitting 2-0, 1-0 in the division, 2-0 in the conference at this point.
Yeah, but this is one of those games that kind of worries you on the schedule because Cleveland's not playing the greatest, and this will be the real,
at least, yeah,
right. But this will be one of those games where are we going to see the Packers of the past that play down to an opponent, or is this going to be the team that we're hoping we have, and they're just going to go out and trash them? And unfortunately, we don't know yet because they've played two solid teams the first 2 weeks in a short amount of time. They're coming off a mini bye. Are they going to come out flat? Are they going to come out ready to go? How are they going to do that? These injuries aren't helping much, but they aren't long-term injuries per se. Like you said, the Zach Tom one is going to be the question mark at what they're going to do at right tackle. If Banks is saying that he's going to play, then I don't see where there's any doubt on that. So that's going to open up Morgan to play tackle, Belton or Kennard, or however, or if maybe they bring up Banks again from the practice squad, however they want to do it. But that's going to be the key, because now I can't say this 100%, but I'm fairly certain that Myles Garrett only lines up over the right tackle. They don't really switch him up much. So that right side is going to be the side that is going to get pressured more often. Now, on the plus side, that is the side that Jordan Love will see coming, so he can do a little bit more with it. It's not like he's going on the blind side, but Is that going to panic Jordan a little bit more? Is that going, how's that going to work if Garrett is continually putting pressure? And what's he at? He's 30 now, 31.
30, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though he's getting a little bit longer in the tooth, he's still a menace on that defense. And they have a pretty solid defense, even though it's a little bit of an older defense per se. I mean, they got some young bucks on there too, but it just, how are the Packers going to handle it? And so far, they've handled good defenses well so far. I know we kind of joked about it and all that stuff, but with the Commanders having an old defense, but it was still a pretty solid defense. The Lions, even though they have a new defensive coordinator, still have a solid defense with the players that they have on that team. Packers have been able to handle things, but again, who knows? Do they play down to the team like they have in the past, or do they go in and want to go for the kill shot?
So and this is one of those games where when you look at it, you look at Cleveland's stats, and their stats are really funky because this, it's only 2 games, and this Ravens game was a weird one. So, the final score, it's 41-17 Ravens over the Browns. But when you really look at what happened in that game, Cleveland closes the score to 20-10 with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. And then they start turning the ball over rapidly. And what's it? So even to make it 20-3, the Ravens score a touchdown on a 5-yard drive after a turnover. Then later, there's another interception, and then there's a fumble return for a touchdown, or a blocked punt, and then a fumble return for a touchdown. I forget the order of it and stuff. So if you look at it in terms of their points per game, Cleveland ranks 25th because that 41 is a crooked number. And their points per play allowed is a crooked number because of that points per game, but it's not all technically by the defense. However, Cleveland's defense is first in yards allowed and second in opponent yards per play allowed, which is something that Green Bay has have to deal with. And in particular, they're very stingy against the run. They're fresh off of holding a team they actually outgained the Ravens by 81 yards and held a Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry team to 45 rushing yards. And I know some people say, well, the Ravens didn't need to run that much. Cleveland provided enough points and all that kind of stuff. What I will say, turnover luck is fickle. Green Bay have relied on turnovers a lot last season. They're not having to a lot this season because they're just a much more talented defensive unit. But at the same time, if Cleveland takes better care of the ball, that game is a lot closer, and maybe their inability to run, is a bigger problem. I just bring that up because that could be an issue for the Packers, who have not had success running the ball yet so far this season. Partly due to the shuffling of the offensive line, that group hasn't had time to gel yet. But at the same time, Jacobs has missed a few reads each game, and he's dinged up now. You haven't seen much out of Brooks. Wilson has 1 carry on the season. It was to bleed the clock at the end of the Detroit game. So
Brooks has been used more in the passing game than anything else.
And he's gotten a couple draws or that kind of give up runs on 3rd and forever kind of thing. So, it remains to be seen what Green Bay is going to do on the ground. But what I think is a big feather in their cap is what LaFleur started to unveil this past game. Like I said, probably was kind of ticked off that he had to unveil some of the Savion package and stuff. But what that does for Green Bay is hopefully it'll help loosen up this Browns defense, because the more wrinkle stuff you show on film, the more things that Cleveland has to keep their eyes on. The more eye candy you put on the field, the more attention you draw away from just running Josh Jacobs up the middle kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that side of it plays out. Where I do think Green Bay could have some success is Cleveland plays something like 46 or something percent man coverage. And granted, you've got to be able to pass protect, but at the same time, if you can buy Jordan and the receivers some time, they should have some success uncovering against this defense. And one of the statistics that I saw brought up on PFF's game preview is by their stats, Cleveland has been the best team through 2 games at denying tight ends receiving success, and Green Bay, on the backs of Kraft's big day on Thursday night and Musgrave having those 2 catches for 32 yards, they're the best tight end receiving production team. So that'll be something interesting to see how that stacks up come Sunday. But those are, the 2 areas that kind of stand out as like where this game could kind of flip on a dime is, Green Bay's ability to gain success on the ground and if they can find room in the passing game.
Well, here's the stat for you. So we're all happy with the Packers' run defense so far, and they've given up 97 yards in the past 2 games. Cleveland's only given up 91. So that shows you that if we're happy with what the Packers are doing on run defense, then Cleveland's even happier with what they're doing on their run defense. So it's one of those things, and I got into this a little bit with some Hawkeye fans because of the same issue, is you've got to learn when, if you can't run it, but you can throw it, continue to throw it until they make you stop. Make them show you they can stop the pass before you break into anything else. Don't continue to just pound the rock and say, oh, well, eventually something will break open. No, if they're freely giving you the pass option and you can make it work, even if it's 5-6 yards a catch or something like that, do it. We've got the receivers, we've got the quarterback, we've got the guys that can do it, the tight ends that can do it. So if they're allowing you that and they're going to stop the run, take the pass. Because eventually they're going to have to start protecting the pass, and that'll open up the run game. So don't be bullheaded like friggin' Kirk Ferentz and just keep pounding the rock and hope something will happen. Get some of your gadget plays out there. Get some of your touch passes and pitches and stuff like that out there. Then you can start opening up the run game a little bit more.
Yeah, and where that factors in is that Cleveland isn't very big up front on their defensive line. Like, their edges are a little bigger. They're kind of in the 270 range. But then you have Malik Collins, a relatively reliable vet on the interior, but he's only 310 pounds. And then you have rookie Mason Graham, and he's listed at 315. I find that number a little dubious because he definitely was more in the like 295 to 300 range when he was at Michigan. But the big thing, like you said, is in order to get Cleveland out of their comfort zone, they're a heavy cover 1, cover 3 team. They like to run a lot of man because they trust their corners. They've got a good pair in Denzel Ward
Newsome and Ward.
Greg Newsome. Yep. So you've got to be able to get separation there. This is a big game for the receivers. You want to see, Dobbs, Wicks, and, if Golden can have some success out there, that would be absolutely wonderful for this offense. And like you said, part of the reason why Cleveland is so good in the run is because they sit in that cover 1 pre-snap look so much so that they can, have 8 guys in the box. And you have to, they count on Garrett being able to disrupt the pocket to help them create havoc. So, got to have a plan for Myles Garrett. The rest of their D-line, isn't known for being pass rushing, great pass rushers. McGuire is a third year player now with 8.5 career sacks, including 1 this year. Their reserve ends are former Buck Joe Tryon Shoyinka and Alex Wright. So not big names there. And then they're breaking in a couple. So there are 3 linebackers. They've got rookie Carson Schlesinger out of UCLA, and then they're
Who's
running
an athletic freak.
yeah, but still can be kind of caught going in the wrong direction at times. And then there are two outside linebackers, are two, kind of hand-me-downs in Devin Bush and Jerome Baker, who, so far are playing well early this season, but, have been got on their former teams. So it's up to Green Bay to, create movement in the pass game, like you said, so that you can spread out this defense and force them to have to play a little more, too high. And then from there, when you lighten the box, you can hopefully get the run game going. So, like you said, this game and the Week 7 game in Arizona are the two where on paper, it shouldn't be a mystery that Green Bay should win these two games, especially with how those teams have played to start the year. But that Arizona game, that's your first West Coast trip, like true cross-country trip. This one is your first road trip after starting two games at home. And so it's really important for Green Bay. It's all the basics this week. And that LaFleur has been drilling it in the long practice week. Take care of the football. This game is the absolute definition of a end every drive in a kick game. And I use that adage a lot. And what that means is you take care of the football so that every drive ends with a punt, a field goal kick, or a point after touchdown, a PAT kick. And that's the kind of football that you've got to play this weekend. You cannot give this Browns team any reason to feel like they belong. And something we also discussed this week is like, you don't want this to be a they're killing them everywhere but the scoreboard kind of game. Like, don't give crappy teams a reason to hang around. Like, you brought it up as your stale that, like, could they have pushed the lead last week? I said that I'm waiting to see what happens because, they're playing the 2 games in 5 nights. Now's the time for LaFleur. If you have a chance to put the hammer down, put the hammer down. You can coast and play the clock when you're up 3 scores, but get to 3 scores. Don't just do the 2 scores, or if, the field goal kicking and you're at an 8-point and you treat the 8-point lead as like a 1.5. I hate that crap. Get a 3-score lead, and then you can kind of bleed the clock at that point. And I say that,
and
like,
make sure it stays a 3-point lead.
Yeah. So, like, and I don't want fans to think that it's easy, and I also don't want fans to be alarmed if it looks hard for the Packers this week. They're still going with what's going to be some kind of shuffling on the offensive line because I do not believe Tom is going to play. And if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. And
I wouldn't even risk it. Save him for the next game.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, like,
unless
I
for some reason he miraculously wakes up tomorrow and it's completely healed and he's having no issues.
Right. And like I said, I'm going purely off of how he looked in practice and the fact that he was so, like, very careful with his words. We'll see how I feel tomorrow. Like, those aren't the, like I said, when you got one lineman being guarded like that and the other one's like, I would have played last week if it was a Sunday game and I'm definitely playing on Sunday kind of thing. Like, you don't have to mask it very much. So, yeah, like, they have the offensive line shuffling. It's your first road test. You're coming off of 2, like, emotional, galvanizing wins for the team. You're still riding a little bit off the Parsons high. So, all those things. And then this is a good defense. Like, make no mistake about it. This legit might be one of the best defenses this team plays this whole season. And you're catching them when they're still pretty healthy. Like, the only Brown preferred starter who's going to miss this game is linebacker Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, which is a big one because he is a legitimate sideline to sideline defender who Green Bay would have to be alert for. So
they've got a couple of injuries that it's a toss up. Like, Delpit's got a back injury right now, so he was limited. what was the other one? Mike Hall Jr. has a knee, so he was limited. Now, I had to laugh at this because this is the first time I've really seen this put on a injury report, but has it listed as Denzel Ward with shoulder and cramping. And I get the shoulder, but how do you end up on the injury report with cramping? Because doesn't that eventually go away? I mean, I've had some gnarly Charlie horses in my leg that kind of stick with you, but I don't think I'd end up on the injury report with cramping.
Yep. That feels like one of those Bill Belichick put the whole team on the injury report kind of things. It remains to be seen what happens there. Like I said, just be smart with the football, take care of it, and win the line of scrimmage. Like, I do want to see the Packers make a statement in that regard. And, like I said, they're not going to have a full deck, but see if you can create some movement and move some guys off the line of scrimmage and, impose your will. Like, I appreciate, like I said, I do appreciate that we have seen them when they've needed to score, like when Washington cut the score to 17-10, they go right down the field and score a touchdown. Sort of similar in the Detroit game where Detroit, it's Detroit's kind of hanging around and you go and put the game out of reach at that point. So I do want to see them really flex that. And then I think we both agree. You get a good 17 point, 21 point second half lead. Then LaFleur, you can bleed the clock and take the air out of the ball. But like you said,
but then you go, if they score, then you make sure you go and get that lead back.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like I said, it's all well and good with how they've been playing the last couple of weeks, but you need that killer mentality. And right now they're not showing quite that killer mentality yet. They're showing, what's a good euphemism for that? They're showing psychotic tendencies, but they haven't moved to their killer instinct yet. So, and I know that, but we're in the Halloween season, so get over it. I'm trying to do my best with euphemisms here. But get that mentality. You want to see them go and just, like I said last week, you want to see them do what Detroit did to Chicago. You just want to throw a 52 burger up there and call it good. And you want to, not that you're going to be able to do that week in and week out, but you need that mentality that we're going to go in here and we're going to score 100 points.
Yeah.
Now, are they going to score 100 points? No, but you need that mentality that, hey, we're going to put this up. We're not going to stop until, they throw the white flag. And even if they wave the white flag, we might not even stop then.
Yep, I agree. And yeah, I do want to see this team score 30 points and like a real 30-point game where, it's not like, oh, you score like after they've turned the ball over on downs late in the fourth quarter kind of thing. Go into the fourth quarter with 30 points. Like, I want to see that kind of output. I know it's going to be tough against this team, this Browns team, because their defense is that good. But like I said, hopefully you'll be the team that'll benefit from some short fields, some opportunities in that regard, but also go and make opportunities on your. We're focusing a lot on the offense against the Packers offense against the Browns defense because that's what on paper should be the struggle in this game. On the other side of the field, it's like, just don't make mistakes.
Right. They've got Flacco at quarterback, and he's as immobile can be. You got to figure the defense is going to feast on that. The big thing to watch on that is if they're going to continue a snap count for Micah Parsons. Now, they do have some wide receivers to keep an eye on, but, it's going to be, as long as they get the pressure on Flacco and they can cause that disruption, there should be no issues with the wide receivers. They're kind of struggling a little bit with the run game, like the Packers are. But if the Packers' run defense continues like they have been, then that shouldn't even be an issue. So, yeah, we are concentrating more on the offensive side of the ball for the Packers, but that's because we kind of know what the offense for the Browns are going to be getting in. Now, this is one of those games that would typically happen in, that something's going to happen to Flacco and they're going to bring in one of the backups and then the backup runs all over the Packers. Now, that's a possibility. You got the two rookies behind. I don't even know what their depth chart is. Is Gabriel the next one up if something happens to Flacco?
Yeah, Gabriel is QB2. Yeah.
So, that's a possibility. And then they do have Packer killer Bailey Zappi on the practice squad if they decide to bring him up too. But, I know Flacco has the history behind him, but he's at that 40-year mark. He's never been a running quarterback. He was able to escape pockets pretty good, but even that's limited anymore. So, again, steady dose of Micah, steady dose of Rashawn, steady dose of Lucas. Get pressure on him, and we shouldn't have any issues on that side of the ball.
Yeah, so on their offense, Jack Conklin, he's trying to come back from an elbow injury, but the report is that is probably not going to happen for them this week. At left tackle, you have DeJuan Jones, who's had a rough time adjusting to the NFL game. And then their longtime stalwart, Joe Bitonio, he's dealing with a back issue, did not participate in practice on Wednesday. That'll be something to keep an eye on. And yeah, like you said, they do have some names at wide receiver. Jerry Jeudy, who's kind of found a rejuvenation in Cleveland. Cedric Tillman, who was, a favorite amongst Packer fans. And tight ends David Njoku and Harold Fannin Jr.
And they've got fellow rookie from Texas, Isaiah Bond, too, who has talent that they've been kind of using like the Packers have Matthew Golden with some... I think he's had one end around, and then he's got a couple of catches for short gains, but yeah.
Yeah. So it is just handle your business. Like, I don't mean to make it sound so simple, but it really is just to handle your business, take care of your, what's it called? Manage your yard and all that kind of stuff, whatever adage you want to use to it. And it, like I said, just from a Packers offense standpoint, this is a game where, like, Jordan, we don't need you to do anything special. Just take care of the football and don't give this Browns team a short field. Like, that is, I don't want to say it's the only way you can lose, but it is like the most direct path Cleveland has to beat Green Bay is for Green Bay to just shit the bed in this game. So take care of the football. Like I said, end every drive in a kick and just win the field position battle. And this is one of those, like, some fans will really complain if the Packers offense just struggles to get traction. But like I said, this hypothetically, especially with how healthy the unit is, could be the best defense they face all season. Like, just in terms of the way that they play as a unit, Myles Garrett still being at the top of his game, being basically Parsons equal in terms of, like, a single player front seven wrecking crew guy kind of thing. So,
but the only thing that they don't have going for them on that end is they don't have a counterpart to them.
Exactly.
Whereas the Packers have three of them.
And so even more so, like, don't be shy about pouring resources into stopping Myles Garrett, because if you're able to control him, you should be able to control this game on offense. So
we bring the U-71 package back out.
I mean, I'm all for it at this point. Do whatever you got to do, but I think we've covered all the points on this one. So we'll go into our over-unders for the game.
Yeah, that's fine. So the first one I'm going to throw out here is have a number set, but this is basically, will he score one, will he not score one? And that's Josh Jacobs over under half a touchdown.
I say yes, they're going to get him to tie the record.
I've been thinking about it. And as much as I hate to say this, they are going to do we're just going to pound it. We're just going to pound the rock. We're going to pound the rock. So I do think he's going to get one, but I think it's going to be limited to one. My next one is more of a hope thing than anything because he's been kind of quiet so far, and that's over under 35 and a half yards for Matthew Golden. And I will put it as receiving yards.
I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna say I'll put it at 55.
I'm hoping for an over, but I just have this feeling that it's not going to come. I have a feeling it's going to end up being like 35 yards period. And that's because there's so many weapons on this offense that it's not like one of those teams that need a wide receiver because the rest of them on the team are Jags and they're just going to continue to throw him the ball just because that's the only guy that they have. This Packers offense is loaded with them. And even with Jaden Reed going down, you've got other guys that are going to step up. I mean, Dontavian Wicks has been looking good this year. Malik Heath is going to get at least one deep pass at some point. Of course, you got Romeo that's going to be, I'm hoping for Matthew to get more, and I'm still hoping that they make that connection on deep. But I'm going to go just under what I've got numbered for him on here.
All right.
My next one, I'm going to go with Keyshawn Nixon over under 1.5 pass breakups. And I'm doing this number because last game he had an ungodly amount of pass breakups with 5 of them. And I just want to say that I don't think he's a bad player. I just think he's getting a lot of help from what's happening with the pass rush. So, yes, he's been in the area and he's actually made the plays on these. It's not been like flukes, but I think his numbers are going to come back down to earth. I'm going to say he's going to be lucky to even get one, so I'm going under. But not to say he's going to make any mistakes or anything like that, but I'm just saying that I don't think he's going to get that chance to make the pass breakups like he did against Washington. And with the way they score these things in the stat line. So, yeah, I'm going under for that.
I agree. I think it's going to be under. I think he'll get like one. 5 is a good year for a lot of corners, kind of thing. Like 5 is a season total, and not just a matter of how he individually is playing, but it's also what the refs will let him get away with too. And I do think he, for the most part, had good coverage on his opportunities, but he definitely was more physical in week 2 than he was in week 1. I think he sensed that he has the opportunity to play that more aggressive style because of the fact that, Parsons is there and the rest of the front 7 has turned up their level of play. So I think that, but this game, I think you combined like a different referee crew with then just a different kind of team this week. Like the way Washington plays, because they play to Daniel's strengths, it's a little bit more of like a college style offense with more quick hitters, routes that Nixon is better at covering, whereas I do think that Cleveland will try to test Nixon deep. I don't know if Flacco will have time to throw those, but those are the kind of routes that have given Nixon more trouble where, he just doesn't have the ball skills to find the ball when his back is to the quarterback and stuff. So I think you combine all of those, and I do think he'll be under.
And he's only got 5 pass breakups for the season, and all 5 of them came last week against Washington. So my next one is defense over under 2.5 sacks. I probably should have set this at like 3.5 because I do think it's going to be an over. But there's always that chance that, I don't know, something weird can go down where they're getting pressures. They just can't get home on the pressures. So I'm going to go over, but with that caveat.
I'm going over, and I'm going well over at 5. I think that they're, like you said, the one way that it doesn't happen is if Flacco just goes like full Brady mode and just starts dirting the ball instead of taking hits kind of thing, which he sort of did at different points against Baltimore. But also Baltimore, they have guys who have rushed the passer at times, but they don't do it consistently like Green Bay's front has been doing it. So I think, excuse me, I think that we're going to see Green Bay have a lot more success on that front. And as much as I've got some concerns with how Green Bay's line is going to handle Myles Garrett, like you said, their whole O line's got to deal with Green Bay's whole defensive front. And I think that Green Bay, especially if Bitonio is any kind of limited, DeJuan Jones, Parsons, he might not put a hand on Parsons at certain points of the game. And, Cornelius Lucas is probably going to get the start at right tackle. So, you have two bigger, slower footed tackles in the game for Cleveland. And that's just kind of a recipe for disaster.
Then you got slow-footed Flacco back there passing the ball. So, like I said, the only way that I can see them not going over on this is if they're getting pressures, but they're not able to get home. So Flacco's getting the ball out quicker, or they're running some kind of trick play that the defense isn't catching on to, or something like that. So my last one is kind of a Cleveland one right now. It's Myles Garrett over under 1.5 sacks, and I don't have a number for what I think our defense is going to do. So I'm going to say he's going to go over. I think he does hit the 2 sack mark because let me make sure I'm saying the right number real quick, but I'm pretty sure he's at like 3.5 sacks already for the season. Yeah, 3.5 sacks for the season, and last week he had 2. So that means he's almost averaging 2 sacks a game right now. So, and with the injuries that the Packers are dealing with at right tackle, which is going to be his primary spot, if Belton's starting or Morgan's starting or whatever, they're going to have to be perfect to stop him.
Yeah, I agree. This is out of pure respect for how good he is. Like I said, I know LaFleur is going to have a plan for him, but Garrett had a sack against Ronnie Stanley, who has had injury problems, but is still a very good offensive tackle. Garrett went around Stanley like he didn't exist, and he just went into the backfield at will and brought Lamar Jackson down. Lamar didn't have a chance to pump fake on the play. It was so fast. So it's one of those where he's going to get his, and it's just about mitigating damage. Like I said, take care of the football and maximize your other opportunities, because he's that good that, it's like Parsons. He's so good, he's going to get his. So just have
so
to...
here's a question for you that doesn't go over, under, or anything like that, so we don't have to keep track of it. But do you think this is a game that they could have all 4 of the tight ends active? Because Ben Sims is a little bit more of that inline pass blocker than the other 3.
I could see it, especially because Fitzpatrick, he's had some moments.
Erratic.
But he's had some moments, and it's kind of like what, in one of our group chats where, some people just in the fan base were like, oh, Fitzpatrick should get it above Sims. But I'm like, I don't think they're ready to move on from Sims yet, because Sims has been such a reliable blocker for them in the past. Fitzpatrick, you see where they want to go with it, but at the same time, he's still... I think he's almost too tall for his body, because, you can tell that, technician wise and willpower, like he wants to be a good blocker. The effort is there, but he's 6'7", and like he just gets out leveraged as an inline blocker, and he's doing his best, but you've seen multiple times in each of the past 2 games where he's kind of just gotten thrown out of the way kind of thing. And his best blocking has been when he's been out on the perimeter, leading some plays and stuff like that, or a couple of those ones where they motion him into the backfield and he's almost like a fullback on certain plays. So I do agree with you that this could be the one where you potentially see him, where you see Sims up as well. The only reason I'm kind of hesitant on it is I don't know who they wouldn't have active instead. I guess one option is which I can't see them not doing, but is like, he takes Reed's spot on the game day active roster, basically. You just go, one for one there. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I could definitely see it this week, especially like you said, if LaFleur is just intent on grinding this game out, get and
Well, I was thinking more as the guy that would lend help to the right side for Myles Garrett, because I do think Sims is the better blocker than the other three. And it's nothing against Tucker in the blocking range, because Tucker's a good blocker. It just, I think Sims was brought in to be that Mercedes Lewis replacement at blocking, because he was near that level when it came to things. So it just makes me wonder if they'll have all four, or maybe this will be the week that they sit Fitzpatrick and just leave Sims, or suit up Sims. But I really do think that they're going to have to throw some help over on that right side, no matter who's starting over there.
And especially to like the other angle about it is like, if you have Sims up, you can send Kraft down the field. Like you don't have to. Basically, at this point, it's wasting Kraft if he's got a chip on every play. Like that's a wasted rep. That I know he can still get open, he can still run a route, but he's not getting downfield if he's got to stay into chip, because it's 1,000 hit, rebalance, go kind of thing and stuff. And otherwise, yeah, I am the one thing on offense that I'm really curious to watch is if they lean more kind of spread with 3 wide receiver looks, or if they go bigger with like 12 or 13 personnel and try to like, because I do think they want to do these linebackers for the Dolphins. They're younger than the ones that the Redskins or the Commanders have. But at the same time, I do think they want to see Kraft and Musgrave have their opportunities, getting behind these linebackers, putting those defenders in conflict, and seeing what, the Packers are able to do on offense in that regard. So it'll be interesting to see. Just like we've both said, what it really comes down to is just whatever buttons LaFleur's got to push to get out of Cleveland with a win, push them. Like, that's really it. It's as simple as that.
Pretty much.
Anything else for this game, or we'll just put a bow on it for tonight?
I think we're good. I mean, other than just hoping that we come out with no major injuries, or anything like that. And, let's continue this push. I mean, so far this has looked like a pretty solid team. And this is just another in a long line of games that they're going to have to play to hit that Holy Land that we're all wanting them to hit.
Yep. So, McCarthy used to always say, like, you want to, split the season into quarters, and you want to go through each quarter 3-1. And hey, if you get this win on Sunday, you're at 3 wins. And, obviously you want to beat the Cowboys. That's a conference game, and you want to stick it to Jerry and all that kind of stuff. But you want to be racking up these wins early in the season. So, as, fatigue sets, potential injuries said, all that kind of stuff. The Packers have spent the last 3 years really playing from behind because, 2022, really all 3 years, they lost a bunch of games early in the season that they missed opportunities on. They kind of slugged around at 500 for half the season. And then they did catch fire late in the season, but it's like, you had your opportunity to be doing better. So it's these kind of moments where, like we've said in previous seasons on this show, you want to prove you're a good team, win the games you're supposed to win. And like I said, this one, because of how good Cleveland is a very uneven seesaw team in terms of which side of the ball they're better on. But this is one of those, go get a win that you're supposed to walk away with easily. Just do it. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts, and like you said, come out healthy.
For sure.
But yeah, that's, like I said, we're gonna put this one to bed so that Joe can edit quickly and get to bed. So check out the website, ohanapackers.org. We're starting to put up more articles, so please check those out. Past episodes of this show, Cheese Talk Radio, are all on there. Support the channel by going to our shop. Check out our merch. Please support us there. And please give us feedback on the articles. We want to be writing the things that you're looking for, that you're interested in. You can give us that feedback on our social medias. You can follow either of us individually or follow the show at Ohana_Packers on Twitter. You can follow the two of us on Blue Sky, on Instagram at Ohana Packers Edition, and on Facebook. We keep saying we want to hit that 100 follower mark so that if we do any live streams, that we can stream it to Facebook along with other platforms. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Please give us a like and a subscribe. And hey, we're all pulling in the same direction. We're all rowing in the same direction, trying to get to 3-0 on the season. And, hopefully we'll have another happy episode and a happy victory Monday to boot to start the week off. So with that, go Pack Go and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go